Hi, this is Taugrim. My warrior reached level 50 last week, so this is my first endgame PvP video. All of the footage here is rank 1, which is the default rank you get when you reach 50, and that means that I have no PvP gear. I get CC'd from range by a Dominator spec mage, stunned. I go ahead and use Paladin's Devotion to break the stun effect, and then close the gap with Rift Walk, use my ranged Paladin stun, and then follow up with my ranged silence ability. So against a DPS spec mage, this is very fast fight, and it's really critical that I rotate my CCs at the right time, and that I burn that mage down. Sit down to drink, and in a moment here, a rogue's going to try to gank me. And if you're curious about key bindings or character control and strafing, I recommend you watch my previous video, Warrior Volume 9. I talk about those subjects in great detail. So, rogue tries to jump me. I go ahead and strafe kite away, root him, snare him, and then get a fiery burst dot running. The second time, instead of using fiery burst, I should have used Rift Surge against a class that has instant cast abilities. Rift Surge tends to pack some pretty good compact burst, which is very useful. But regardless, because I was strafe kiting from the very beginning and gapped the rogue, I was able to make up for the heal deficit and then burn him down. So this is a Port Scion Warfront. Very complex battleground. Actually takes a while to get the hang of the mechanics of it. You can see I'm mostly through rank 1. Once I get to rank 2, I will be able to acquire PvP gear. And because I still have a level 40 mount, what I'll usually do is I will rift walk to a player that's ahead of me to close the gap. What happens when you get up to rank 2 and above, you start getting access to epic PvP gear, which has the Valor stat on it. Valor is a flat damage mitigation stat, similar to Resilience in World of Warcraft. So here on this mage, I get CC by this rogue. I break the first CC with Paladin's Devotion, the second one with Rift Walk, and it's important to try to use Rift Walk and Paladin's Devotion instead of break free, because right here I get CC'd a third time, and this is with a Confuse effect, and the Confuse effect would only be removed in my case by break free. Rift Walk and Paladin's Devotion won't help with it. So whenever possible, use Rift Walk first. Rift Walk will break some CCs as long as you have line of sight to the target. If I don't have line of sight, or if it's a CC effect like Fear that Rift Walk won't break, then I go ahead and use Paladin's Devotion. But I try to save Break Free, which is the CC breaker from the PvP Vindicator tree. Try to save that for last for situations where I'm going to need it, just like I showed in that clip against that rogue where I had to use 3 different CC effects, CC breakers, to stay on my feet. So I do make a mistake here in a moment. We are trying to hold on to the bridge, and the Guardians are gradually pushing us across the bridge. So I go ahead and pop Riftstorm here in a moment. And Riftstorm is a point-blank AoE centered around the Riftblade Warrior. It's a really good ability for preventing a group of people from capping the flag, since it ticks every second. Now I do make a really critical mistake here. I get burned down and killed, and I should have used my full heal. And the reason why I say this is if you watch the Guardian players push us across the bridge, cap the flag, and force us to respawn elsewhere with only like 4 or 5 seconds left on the respawn. So if I burn my full Paladin healed and turtle by the flag, we probably would have held on to it, so that's my mistake. After rezzing, we go ahead and push back toward the bridge. I get stunned here, use Rift Walk to break the CC effect, stun my opponent, and we burn that player down, and then finish off this warrior who's overextended. So we make our way back over to bridge to try to recap it, and I found in a lot of cases that it's helpful for me to not try to cap the flag, but rather to push into the opposing lines and keep other players, the healer and range DPS, busy. So I find a cleric here, start to attack him, and I'm strafe kiting him to break his line of sight as much as possible and stay behind him so that he can't parry my attacks. We burn him down, and one thing which is helpful, since I'm one of the forward meleeers on our side, I give our range DPS a focus fire target to try to attack. I see a cleric on the far side of church here. I go ahead and pursue and start to attack him, so I open up with Rain Silence and start to DPS, and then I see a Ranger Spec rogue come out over the hill, and I know a res wave is coming soon, so I start to strafe away. This is really important not to stay in the pocket too long, and use a root on his pet. And once I'm up to 3 attack points, I go ahead and burn the cooldown Reverend Protection. It's a 21 point AoE Pally bubble, And if you can see my health here, it drops all the way down to 1k. So if I hadn't popped the bubble, I would have died or been forced to use my full heal. But as it is, I get healed, and I'm able to kill that warrior was overextending, and then I can press the counterattack, use Wind Spear Silence from range, go ahead and stun my opponent, and then help burn him down. So this is a big part of the Riftblade Pally playstyle. You know, I don't have necessarily huge sustained or burst DPS, but I've got functional DPS, I've got good survivability, and I have a wide array of CC effects that I can use on opposing players. I am a little bit deep in the pocket there and overextended, but I do have my full heal, and here I'm taking a lot of focus fire from opposing players, so I use Rift Walk to get closer back to my friendly lines, and my health starts to drop here pretty low, but I got out in time to get healed back up to full, and then I can press the counterattack. Now, one thing to note, as any fresh 50, you're going to find relative to other players that you're going to be squishy, because you don't have the PvP gear, which has Valor on it, which is a flat damage mitigation stat. You know, you're going to have to take that into account and be careful and pick your spots when you're playing. This is especially true for melees. You know, I see a lot of complaining by warriors claiming at 50 that they're too squishy, and I think, you know, part of it is you just have to take into account the different gear mechanics at 50 and adjust your playstyle accordingly. So you can see, for example, right now I'm pressing the attack very aggressively because we're in the process of wiping other players, and it makes sense to. But you want to be careful about not overextending. If you overextend, you're going to make it difficult to get healed, yourself healed. You're likely going to die, and that's going to put the rest of your team in a bad spot. The other thing I should say too, you know, I've mentioned this in my other videos, I'm a big believer in Riftblades meleeing as much as possible, not just sitting back and using their ranged abilities. And you know, the reason why is some of our best abilities, our melee silence and our chainable 5% crit buff, are only usable in melee range. So I try to use, you know, melee abilities as often as possible, and when needed I'll strafe kite away or attack from range, but generally I try to get, you know, in the face of my opponents as much as possible. So we're trying to recap bridge here, and I pop Rift Storm to try to keep the Guardian players from recapping the flag. And one thing here is I don't make the same mistake I made earlier. In a moment here my health gets pretty low, so I go ahead and burn my full heals. I'm just trying to buy time for our players to hold on to this flag. And you can see here this cleric is trying to cap the flag, but I'm consistently hitting him to break his ability to cap the flag, and I'm using my Paladin Sweeping Strikes and Riftblade Thunderstrike AoE abilities to try to apply some AoE pressure. Now, Riftblade and Paladin don't have the kind of range, the AoE capability that mages and rogues do, but you know, I do what I can. And here we're pushing the players back from the bridge, and this is one thing that I really enjoy about playing a one-handed tank off spec, is that I can, you know, apply pressure, and I've good survivability, good tools to work with in case I'm getting shelled. So like right here, for example, I'm taking a ton of focus fire, so I start to strafe kite back to provide time for healing and to break line of sight around the corner of that building. And then as soon as my HP is back up, I go ahead and press the counterattack. And you know, in a lot of cases, you know, if there's a ranged standoff here, players aren't going to start to really hit the floor until someone goes in and helps coordinate focus fire. So granted, this is a pug, but I found in a lot of cases, if I press in and pick a healer or caster target, you know, other players, the ranged DPS behind me, will pick the same target and help burn them down. So this is what I find really enjoyable about playing a tank in PvP. I can be very aggressive. And I finish first in this Warfront, this pug Warfront, with 19 killing blows and third on damage. You know, keep in mind, of course, I wasn't running flags, so you know, I was actively engaged in combat the whole time, and our healing was a bit stronger compared to the other side. So you know, all these things help to inflate my stats. I certainly don't score 19 killing blows in every Warfront that I step into. If you're looking for more information about Riftblade, check out the PvP guide on my blog, and please let me know here on my blog if you have any questions. Hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.